Welcome to the Faroe Islands. Not to forget subscribing, please. The Faroe or Faroe Islands is an archipelago of 18 islands in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean, with roughly 50,000 inhabitants. The islands are an autonomous territory associated with Denmark. When visiting the Faroes, you are never more than 5 kilometers away from the ocean. The countryside is dominated by steep mountains, and there are about 70,000 sheep and some 2 million pairs of seabirds, including the largest colony of storm petrels in the world. The Faroe Islands are undeniably beautiful, green, rugged and windswept. Most visitors to the islands come between early July and late August. 17 islands are inhabited, leaving just one uninhabited island, the smallest island, Lítla Dímum. There are a lot of smaller islets and skerries around the Faroe Islands. Including the 18 islands, there are 779 islands, islets, and skerries in the Faroe Islands. A large part of these are around the island Suðuroy, which consists of 263 islets and skerries, including the island itself. The precipitous terrain limits habitation to small coastal lowlands. The islands are connected by tunnels, causeways and a regular public ferry service. Until the late 19th century, people spent most of their lives in the same village. Towns didn't start to appear until very late. For instance, the capital, Tórshavn, only counted about 100 inhabitants in 1900, whereas today the number has escalated into nearly 20,000. In the Faroe Islands, the traditional village was to a certain extent self-sufficient. Historically, there was a limit to how many families it could support. When the fishing industry took off in 1872, it was the beginning of the end for the traditional way of life in the small villages, as fishing replaced farming, and the growing population chose to settle in the fast-growing towns instead. Today there are still over 100 villages in the Faroe Islands. Nearly every one of them is situated near the ocean, and to new visitors, they may all seem to be very much alike. The houses are either painted in bright colors, or the traditional black, whilst the roofs are often turf-covered. The buildings are usually built very close to each other, which is very cozy. Each village is surrounded by a cultivated infield, and surrounding it is the uncultivated outfield. In most places the sheep occupy the outfield throughout the year. The Faroe Islands are a self-governing island territory of Denmark, although they aim politically for greater independence. The Faroese tourist season is very short. It begins in May and ends by September. Most visitors come between July and August by far. If you would like to avoid the busiest season, it is best to visit the Faroes in late May or early June. The Faroese weather has its own temperament, and is a lot like the weather in neighboring regions, just more unpredictable. One of the main reasons that people visit the Faroe Islands is the incredible nature and scenery. The Faroe Islands turn extraordinarily green during the summertime. The fresh air, the deep blue ocean, the vertical sea cliffs, and the green mountains with their picturesque valleys, is something which would amaze anyone who enjoys being surrounded by nature. There are bus rides, horse trekking, mountain hikes, and boat trips, which allow you to enjoy the magnificent wild green landscape. Sometimes the summer fog creates a mystical landscape, in which you may vividly imagine the great history and mystical stories belonging to the islands. The tranquility of the islands are great if you want to escape from big city madness. The Faroese love to take things easy, and are not at all worried about arriving on time. But if you ever find yourself in the mood for a night out in town, you will find that Tórshavn caters for your every need with its great shops, bars, cafes, and restaurants. Because the islands are so close to the Arctic Circle, the amount of daylight varies by season. The sun sets briefly each night in June, so there are several hours of twilight before the sun comes back up again. During the winter there are no days of complete darkness, but about 5 hours of daylight. The Faroe Islands' primary industry is the fishing industry, and the islands have one of the smallest independent economic entities in the world. The fishing industry accounts for over 80% of the total export value of goods, which are mainly processed fish products and fish farming. Tourism is the second largest industry, followed by woolen and other manufactured products. The unemployment rate in the Faroes is extremely low. The Faroese are trying to diversify their economy, but are divided about how to go about it. Most Faroese people work in the public sector as teachers, caretakers, or having office jobs, etc. The rise in the public sector workforce is highlighted by the fact that it is getting less and less popular to work in the fishing industry, and the private sector isn't big enough to support an educated and more demanding workforce. The weather is maritime and quite unpredictable. It can change quickly, and it varies extremely, from moments of brilliant sunshine to misty hill fog, to showers. There can be sunshine on one side of the mountain range, while it's raining on the other side. During the summer, the islands are often overcast by summer fog. The Gulf Stream south of the islands tempers the climate. The harbors never freeze, and the temperature, in winter time, is very moderate considering the high latitude. Snowfall occurs, but it is short-lived. The average temperature ranges from 3 degrees Celsius in the wintertime to 3 degrees Celsius during the summer. The temperature can be much higher, but the air is always fresh and clean no matter the season. With their volcanic origin, the 18 islands are rugged and rocky. The highest peak, Sléttartinda, is 880 meters above sea level. There are 1,100 kilometers of coastline, and at no time is one more than 5 kilometers away from the ocean. Mountains and valleys mostly characterize the inner landscape. The Faroese west coast is characterized by steep slopes and bird cliffs that in the summertime are full of nesting seabirds such as puffins. Something that first meets the eye of a traveler is the lack of trees in the Faroes. The reason for this are the thousands of sheep that occupy the islands. The Faroe Islands are served by one airport. The airport is on the island of Vágar, and the location was chosen by the British during their occupation of the islands during World War II. About 300,000 passengers fly to and from the airport every year. Vágar is connected to the largest island, Suðuroy, by a subsea tunnel. There are buses to Tórshavn. The schedules are aligned with the arrival of all flights. You need to change buses if you are going to Klaksvík. Taxis serve the airport at fixed rates. Summer fog is a problem when flying to the Faroes in the summer months. The planes cannot land in this weather, and will often divert to Iceland or Scotland, where you will stay until the weather clears. This also means that flights out of the Faroes can be disrupted too. Allow yourself a few days either side of your visit to the Faroes in case of flight delays. Smyril Line operates an all-year cruise and car ferry service by the big car ferry, Norröna, with regular sailings to the Faroe Islands. In the summertime, there is service twice a week. The ferry continues onwards to Denmark from the Faroe Islands. On Iceland, the ferry departs from Seyðisfjörður on the east coast. It is the only ferry service with scheduled services to Iceland. Getting to the Faroes by boat takes longer than by plane, but has the advantage of allowing you to take your own vehicle. For people arriving by yachts, there are several harbors around the islands. The two largest islands, Suðuroy and Eysturoy, are connected by a bridge, Sundabrugvin, or the Channel Bridge. A subsea tunnel connects the island of Vágar with Suðuroy, and another connects Borøy to Eysturoy. These are toll tunnels. Road causeways connect Borøy with Viðoy and Kunoy. The other main islands, Sandoy and Suðuroy, have excellent car ferry connections to Suðuroy, making motoring in the Faroes easy and pleasant. The numerous road tunnels in the Faroe Islands mean that drivers of large vehicles must plan their routes by finding out in advance which tunnel they can enter. Driving is on the right, and most road signs follow international standards. Headlights must be on when driving, and the use of seat belts is required. The consequences for speeding are severe. Sheep graze freely on both sides of the main roads, so they will cross at their own will. Also, they may hide from bad weather just inside the tunnels, which causes many collisions each year. Passenger road transport is run by private companies, but is coordinated by a public body, Strand Faroeskiplandsins. It is possible to hike in Faroe Islands. You should stick to prepared trails, and it is not permitted to put up tents outside designated areas. This requires some planning. Weather is unpredictable, there might be rainstorms, so bring suitable clothes. A combination of hiking and bus transport is advised, so you don't need to walk back the same way again. The Faroe Islands are the spot to start your hitchhiking career, because it's one of easiest places to catch a ride. Firstly, most people speak English on your way, so you could have a meaningful conversation, with insights into their culture, which you could not do if locked inside your rented car. Secondly, locals are also curious about travelers, they like to show places for them too. So people would drive out of their way to show you interesting places, chatting along the way. Interestingly, one of activities Faroese people do is to drive around islands and adore their beauty. Thirdly, islands have decent economy, allowing people to purchase vehicles and drive around, so the roads have plenty of cars, but not too much. Fourthly, low population, landmass far away from hideaways, brilliant education system contributes to low crime rate too. Last but not least, distances are very short, lasting up to an hour, so you will not be stuck with the same person for a long time. The native and official language of the Faroes is Faroese, which, like the other Scandinavian languages, Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, and Icelandic, is a North Germanic language. Speakers of these languages will be able to recognize many cognates in the written language, though spoken Faroese is generally not mutually intelligible with these languages. Most locals are also able to speak Danish and English, both of which are compulsory in all schools, and through their knowledge of Danish are also able to understand Swedish and Norwegian. While most Faroese people are competent in English, learning some basic Faroese greetings will help to endear you to the locals and make your trip much smoother. There are the cool attractions. Sléttaratinda. At 880 meters, it is the highest mountain in the Faroe Islands. It is well worth climbing. The only downside is that the summit is often wrapped in fog. Beinisvord. The highest sea cliff in Suðuroy, and the second highest in the Faroe Islands at 470 meters. The views down to the sea, and towards north to the west coast of Suðuroy, are breathtaking. You can see or climb Beinisvör from a place named Hesturinn, which is between the villages Lopra and Sumba. You can drive to Sumba through the tunnel, and then follow the old road to the highest point. From there the edge is only a few meters away. Be careful not to walk too far out on the edge, as the cliff ends all of a sudden. Lake Tofta. South of Eysturoy, situated on the east coast of the fjord Skálafjörður. The low rolling hills around the idyllic lake have the widest stretches of heather on the islands. They are considered unique in the Faroes. Furthermore, the terrain is a splendid choice for an outing. Rinkasteina. A strange natural phenomenon at Oindafjörður, two very large boulders which permanently stand rocking in the ocean, just a few meters from the shore. The stones have been rocking as far back as anyone can tell. The giant and his wife. Two magnificent basalt sea stacks off the northern tip of the island, close to the village of Ei. Legend has it that the two giants had come to tow the Faroes back with them to Iceland, however, the sun rose, and they were both turned into stone. They both stand looking towards Iceland, which they will never reach. Gisadalu. Village and waterfall. This is probably the most iconic image of the Faroe Islands. From a viewpoint, one can see few traditional environmentally friendly houses in a background of a hill on a high cliff with a waterfall. For best picture, come just before sunset. Svargsvatn, the largest lake in the Faroe Islands. It is elevated 40 meters above the sea, and its curve sweeps close to sheer cliffs. Faerey, the northernmost settlement in the Faroe Islands. It is situated between two stunning hills, one of them the third highest in the archipelago. Hiking. Tourist Information Office, including the one in the airport, distributes hiking around the Faroe Islands booklets suggesting various routes. Another great source for hiking tracks is the mobile application called Maps.me, which displays walking paths as well as roads. In any case, one is not far away from picturesque paths in any given location. In the worst case, one can walk along the roads as cars rarely pass by. Kayaking. Widely available for rent. Bird watching. Most traditional Faroese cuisine involves either lamb or fish. The traditional Faroese kitchen mainly owes its food traditions to the archipelago's harsh climate, similar to the cuisine of Iceland. This is because in earlier days the food culture on the islands was not very extensive. It is hard to find a Faroese dish on the menu of a restaurant, but it is possible at certain restaurants and hotels. There are few bars and nightclubs outside of the capital. In Tórshavn the real nightlife is down by the harbour. Here you can find the bar Circus Frøya, where musicians hang out. Von is at Hotel Tórshavn, again situated by the harbour, across the street from Circus. Most young people come here during the weekends. For a coffee, go to the Western Harbour Vagsbotn, just below Tórshavn Dome, and have a cup of coffee at Café Husi. Café Husi is located down by the sea, and has a very nice atmosphere. The youth hostels of the Faroes are spread across the islands. The limited geographical size of the Faroes ensures that the next youth hostel is always well within 1 day's walking distance, allowing visitors to travel from one youth hostel to the next one at will. Legally, camping is only allowed in designated places, but in reality, you can camp anywhere as long as you are not impudent. Locals are aware that camping prohibition law is few centuries old and might not apply these days. Safe distance might be half an hour walk away from the village. There are few objects to hide behind, so you would be visible from far away, but as long as you pitch a tent in evening and pick up early morning, you should be fine. Once again, camping outside designated areas is not legal, but locals do this too. There is widespread cellular phone and internet access. The islands do not belong to the EU, and the roaming charges are much higher than they are inside EU for EU residents. Many tourists use the town library or the National Library to go online. They are both in Tórshavn. Public Wi-Fi widely available, for example in ferries or SMS shopping mall in Tórshavn. Thanks for watching. Let's go sightseeing.